Hey, this is Dave from Grow and Eat It, and I am here at Tallahassee's Native Nurseries. They're having a huge buy one get one native plant sale, which is pretty awesome because it's not something you get all the time. I'm gonna do a little snooping around here and see what's left. I was here earlier for the actual sale, like the beginning of the sale, and the very first thing in the morning, and it was pretty wild up in here. You'll see a bunch of the native stuff is gone. When it's buy one get one free, you kind of expect that. So maybe we'll get to talk to somebody here a little bit about planting native plants. So when I first got here, I was here with my friend Emily, and we walked straight back toward the back. The chaos was sort of out in the middle, and there are not as many native plants here back in the back. But we did find some pretty good stuff. Found some blueberries, which I did not know there were native varieties of blueberries besides wild blueberries here in Florida. So that was a really cool find. And blueberries do really, really well up where I live. So it was a extra cool find. I was here at 8 o'clock this morning when they opened, and you would have thought it was like kids in the candy store. There were people everywhere. The blueberry section is severely depleted compared to what it was before. So I'm glad I got some, and my friend Emily, who was here with me, she got some too. So we bought the same variety, and a lot of times people just kind of mix up the varieties, but we wanted to be smart about our picks, so we chose two early varieties, so they'd be blooming at the same time, and then of course they would set fruit about the same time and get good cross-pollination. Where if you have an early and a late one, they're not going to necessarily cross-pollinate because they're not going to be blooming at the same time, if that makes sense. Although they are not native to Florida, figs are very well adapted here. I'm gonna have some very old and well producing trees at my house, some fig trees. And mine are huge, of course, so not something you can transplant. And then of course we have plums. Plums are native to Florida, or at least some plums are. They're kind of a smaller round plum. Let's see, this is a Flatwoods plum, which I've seen those wild in my neck of the woods. And then a Chickasaw plum, which is a smaller tree. And boy, those things will just go crazy. They'll sucker everywhere, and you'll have little plums everywhere. They've got some kumquats here, of course, and some grapefruit. I live in northwest Florida, so grapefruit and kumquats will do fine, and tangerines do okay. But then when you get to like actual like a Florida orange, they don't do so well. There's a little too much chill factor up where I live. Even though it doesn't get terribly cold, it does get a little bit colder up where I live compared to central and southern Florida. There are quite a few ferns that are native to Florida, which is pretty exciting. My wife has a shady spot on the side of our house that she has decided to collect native ferns and put them in that space. And they're doing really, really well. I learned several things today, but one of them was that the native evergreen torreya is a rare plant. It's rarest in North America, and it's one of the most endangered in the world. It grows 30 to 60 feet tall, but it's a very slow grower. It's interesting, and it's nice that they're trying to promote and save native species like this. Lily is here with me, and she's going to tell us a little bit about native plants and why it's important to plant native plants in your yard.
Well, so the basics are that native plants are the basis of our food web. So they are what take the energy from the sun and turn it into green things, and that, therefore calories, and those calories move up the food chain. And so the big relationship that is super important is between native plants and insects, because the insects are what turn the green things into protein in the form of themselves.
And everybody's trying to get rid of insects.
Yeah, and move it up the food chain to everything else. And so native plants evolved with our native insects, and they have complicated chemical relationships that have formed over millennia. And so when you take a plant from Asia and bring it here, our insects can't use it. And so when you go to a suburb and you see like a lawn and crepe myrtles and some boxwood, those are all non-native plants that don't have relationships with their native insects. And that means that it's a desert for wildlife. There are no insects, and so there will be no baby birds, there will be no foxes, no wildlife.
And some of those turn into invasives too,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, a lot of them. Not a lot of them, but a good many of them.
Some of them.
And that's awful. The state of Florida spends billions a year on invasive species, and a lot of those were brought into the horticultural trade.
Yep. Yeah, we were talking about that the other day in an online group. That kudzu was one of those things. It was like there were good intentions turned invasive.
Yeah, as many plants have done. But so yeah, we focus on native plants, and we also try to educate our customers about why native plants are important, and it's really because of that relationship, and therefore try to educate customers too about why insects are so important and why they want to see holes in their leaves, why that means that you're feeding wildlife in your yard and you're providing habitat that is part of a living system, that is a greater piece of a whole in a functioning ecological system.
You know what my philosophy on that is?
What's that?
If it's got holes in it, plant more of it.
Yeah, definitely. So a lot of plants too support a large amount of insects without us even noticing insect damage. Oaks and pines are two of the most important species for native wildlife, and you never see insect damage. You never notice insect damage on oaks or pine, and yet 557 species of Lepidoptera, which are moths and butterflies, use oaks for larval food. And so there are all kinds of caterpillars up there, but you're never thinking, oh, I better spray that oak because there are holes in the leaves.
Yeah, and it's not just flowers too. I think some people they don't understand. Pollinators start out as larvae, so.
Yeah, so a Luna moth would lay, we're standing underneath a sweet gum tree right now, and that is one of their larval food plants. Lots of people abhor sweet gums because they create those little balls that you step on.
They do.
But
they made good weapons when you were a kid too.
True. And
Fun to
they're
throw them
nice
at your
little
brother or your
ornaments,
sister.
I think. But anyhow, so a Luna moth will lay its eggs on sweet gum leaves, and out of those about 300 eggs, how many of them actually become an adult butterfly?
I don't know.
It's like 3 to 4.
Oh, wow.
So the rest of them become caterpillars, and those caterpillars are extremely nutritional food for wildlife. So caterpillars in particular are super important for baby birds, like bluebirds and chickadees and titmice and cardinals and wrens. In order to raise a nest of baby birds on average per day, the adults are bringing 300 to 500 caterpillars back to feed the babies.
Wow.
So
that's a lot of work.
Yeah, so if you aren't providing those caterpillars in your yard, you're not going to be having baby birds.
Makes sense.
So.
But you can have wildlife habitation in your
a small
own yard.
Patch. Yeah, and you don't really have to. Really, one thing that I think a lot of people don't know is that the trees that you have, which we're really lucky in Tallahassee to have a lot of trees, a lot of native trees, really. The trees are critically important. The herbaceous flowering plants are important, but the trees especially are very important. And oaks and pines, incredibly important. So keeping those in your yard and replanting them if you lose them is really important. But you can also create a small little patch. It doesn't have to be big.
Yeah.
4x4 even, just for pollinator type plants. And you can plant larval food for butterflies and watch the whole metamorphosis process on the plants down right at your feet.
Milkweed is one of those that it feeds the larvae and the butterflies when they.
So all adult butterflies nectar on milkweed blooms, but the monarch butterfly only lays its eggs on milkweed plants.
Makes sense. And then they hatch out and eat the plant, right? Oh.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too, and come out to Native Nurseries in Tallahassee and get your native plants on.
Yeah.
There she
Happiness
is.
through nature.
So there we have it. Plant native plants. It helps the ecosystem, the local ecosystem, including insects, which some people are trying to get rid of, but they're very important to all the other birds and other creatures that you do want to see. So remember that next time you think about trying to kill some bugs in your yard. Instead, provide some food for them, and they'll provide food for the creatures that you do want to see. Until next time, I'm Dave with Grow and Eat It. See you later.